This video is brought to you by uNet. I'm really sorry if I butchered your name. Thank you so much for donating. If you want to support Brackeys yourself, you can go to patreon.com/Brackeys.
Thanks for tuning in at Brackeys.
Hello everyone and welcome to this video on making a multiplayer FPS in Unity. Today we're going to be continuing a bit on our user account system. More specifically, we'll finally take a look at synchronizing user-bound data. So some data that is bound to the player that will persist through scenes and play sessions. And what we are going to be using it for in this video is player stats. So we'll be adding a kill count and a death count, and we'll be showing that in the menu. And this video is focused on getting the data from the server, and then in the next video we'll have a look at sending that when we're in the game and killing people and all of that. So I will just put a very quick disclaimer here, and that is the way that we are doing this is definitely not safe. So if you're really worried about hackers, or if you want to expand this to a much larger system to save a lot of stuff, what I really recommend is either you check out the Database Control Pro asset on the asset store. That does cost a little bit, but frankly, when you do this kind of stuff, it's very hard to do everything yourself and do it completely for free. The other way is setting up your own MySQL database and then hosting it on some server, but again, then you have to pay for server space or pay for your own servers, and it very quickly gets complicated and costly. So that is why I chose to show it in this way in this video, just to get it working and to show you kind of the basics of how it works. And yeah, I just wanted to mention that so I don't mislead anyone. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So you can see that I'm here in Unity. I'm just going to go ahead and clear my console. And what I want to begin by doing is going into our login menu here, double click that to open it up in Visual Studio. And this is the one script that takes care of the entire login process. And I'm going to search for hello world. And the reason why is right now when we successfully register, here register button, when we register, what this login menu does is that it populates our data string, our text variable, with hello world. And instead we want to populate it with something else. Now, the way that we are doing it here is a bit limiting because the free version of Database Control only gives you a single text variable to sync across the network. And that means that if you want to store multiple pieces of information, such as both a kill count and a death count, you will have to embed all of it into that string and then have some way of reading that string to retrieve it again. And the way that we are going to be doing this is using our own little syntax to display that this is the kill count part and this is the death count. You can also hook this up to either XML or JSON, which is our two different ways of basically formatting some data to easily be written and read in basically just a text file or a string. So you can of course hook it up to one of those, that's XML or JSON, but for what we're going to be doing, we'll just do it our own way also, so you can see kind of how this actually works. So the way that I thought that we would do this is that we would have these tags, these symbols that mark whether or not it's the kill count or the death count. And I'm going to put these in square brackets. So this is the amount of kills followed by a number, which is of course our kill count. So I'm going to put 0 here. You could also put 128 or whatever you want to do. This is the amount of kills that we want to begin with. Then we do a slash. That's going to mean, or we're going to program it in such a way that that's a now separated piece of data. So we have kills here, and then we separate that, and then we have a new piece of data, which is going to be our deaths. And I'm just going to put 0 there as well. And you can theoretically have a lot of different things in here. We could then go, I don't know, KD, you could calculate that. So I don't know, playtime or whatever, and then just keep on going. But that is how I want to format my string. And I suggest, unless you know what you're doing, that you might format yours in the same way. Cool, so let's save that. And that just means that new users will have that information. However, if you're already existing users, will not. They will have hello world in there. So what you can do is go Window, Database Control. I'm not going to press here, or I have to blur out my ID, and then clear out the database using the clear database or remove database or something button, and that will just clear out all of the users. Or you can make a script saying that if this variable is equal to hello world, change it to something else, in case you already have a lot of users in your game. I have just cleared out my database for this. I suggest you do the same, and then we can continue. Cool. So what we want to do here is that now that we have set this up, we want to use this information inside of a lobby screen. So you can see here we have a join game and a host game. I want to create a new module over here with the player stats. So let's start by just drawing this out on the UI. So let's go into Canvas and let's create a new empty object here. And I'm just going to call this one modules. So I'm going to go up here, modules, and I'm just going to scale them to fit the two modules we already have here. Something like that. And then we can take our host game and join game and move them under modules. And I'm going to have this scale on the vertical, but not on the horizontal. And I'm going to drag it out a bit. And then what I'll do is I'll go here and add a layout and then horizontal layout group. So it will lay those out automatically. And then we can go ahead and maybe move the host game down here and duplicate it and rename this one to our player stats and rename the host game title to player stats title. And then we can delete those two pieces of UI there, and we can actually go in and change the text here to player stats. So this will of course display our player stats, and what we can do here is maybe just select these three modules and then set the child alignment to upper center. I think that looks better, and then we can maybe add some padding in here, or we could just go ahead and change the size of our module. So I'm going to do that, and I think that looks a lot better. And then what we can do is we can duplicate the player stats title. We can change the font size to something like maybe 18. We can have both of these maybe anchored to the right here. So change that so the text orients itself to the right. And then we can have this be our kill count. And we're just going to put, I don't know, for now, let's actually just put loading in here so that when we haven't retrieved any data, it's just going to say loading. But you could also put in something like 999 kills here. But that's the idea. But I'll just put in loading, and we'll duplicate that and then have this be the death count. And we'll put in loading there as well. So I think that already looks fairly decent. And yep. Without further ado, let's continue the video here. So let's add a new component here called player stats. And let's double click this to open it up in Visual Studio. And this is going to take care of loading in the player stats, which is going to be our kill count and death count. So the first thing that we really want here is a reference to that UI element. So we're going to do be using UnityEngine.ui. And down here, we'll be using public text, and we're going to call this the death count, and public text, and we're going to call this our kill count. Cool. I'm just going to switch the audio on those. I did that by holding down Alt and then pressing up. That's just going to move the line there. All right, so now we can reference those inside of the editor, and I'm just going to do that right away so that we don't forget to do this at a later point. So let's take our kill count and drag it in there, and our death count and drag it in there. Cool, so now we're able to actually change these. So now the idea is that in our user account manager, so if we go user account manager, then .instance, then we have a function called get data. And remember, if we find our user account manager, we move this from the login menu, from the script that was created by the guy who made database control, inside of this user account manager, so we would be able to access it from anywhere. And what this basically does here is that you can see if we are logged in, it sends a request to get some data, and if it successfully does that, then it says sets logged in data, which is a static string equal to that data. I want to change the way that this works just a little bit, because instead of having this logged in data, what I want to do is I want to use this get data request and then have a function that is called when it successfully gets the data, that then that you can then choose, or okay, I'm going to put this a bit differently. You're going to call the getData function, and then you're going to input another method that you want the getData function to call when it's successfully gotten some data. And then the data itself can be passed in as a string to that function. So how do we actually allow ourselves to pass in a function as an argument? That means in here, we're going to have some function here. We're going to have a void on received data, for example, and it's going to take in a string with the data here. And then we simply pass on received data into that get data method here, so that once get data finishes, it's going to call on received data. How do we do this? Well, it's actually really simple. We use delegates. So delegates are ways to create kind of an event that different functions can subscribe to and then be called when that event happens. So we'll create a public delegate void, and we're going to call this the on data received callback, and it's going to take in a string with the data, and we're going to close that off. And what this allows us to do is now go down here under get data and take this on data received callback as an argument, and we're just going to call this on data received. And we can call it, then pass it on to the coroutine as well, because we call this function as well. So we'll have to call or pass on this on data received to that method down here, and we'll have to allow that by adding another argument here. There we go. So we pass it on to the I enumerated the coroutine here. And then down here, instead of setting login data equal to data, what we can then do is we can say on data received dot invoke. And that will just go ahead and call that function. Whatever it is, whatever method that we passed in will be called, and it will be called using the data as the argument. So that is how you can do that. And we can then say if on data received is not equal to null. So just in case something wasn't passed in, then we don't want to go ahead and call it, because that's going to lead to an error. We can't call something that is null. So in our player stats, we have now set this on received data, and here we will then receive the data. The reason why we have to do all of this is because it takes some time to get the data from the server. And so if we were just going get data and then using the data here right afterwards in the start, if we went user account manager dot I don't remember, logged in and then data, that would still be null. It would be nothing, because it hasn't actually received the data yet. This is called right after. It's a matter of milliseconds, and it might take several seconds for it to get this data from the server. So instead we use this way so that we're sure that we only use the data once it is actually received. So here we can actually go ahead and say kill count equals .text equals data. However, our data is currently in the weird formatted state. It has both the kill count and the death count. So we have to somehow translate this data. But we'll do that in a sec. What we'll do right now is we'll just debug.log out our data here, so we can see if our code is at least working so far. So what we should see now is that if we just hit play, nothing is going to happen. And the reason why is that it's only going to... Okay, we get a null reference actually, so let's see here. Okay, we're calling the instance, so we have to put in here if user account manager dot is logged in. We only want to do this if we're actually logged into the account manager. There we go. So now we should see that nothing happens here because we're not logged in. However, if we then oh, I see someone playing here. Oh, that's cool. So if we now actually transition over to our, let's see, our login menu and log in with the user, and I'm just going to put in test123 and test123, login, it's not going to work, of course, because I have to create a new user. So we'll go ahead and do that, test123, test123, and test 1, 2, 3, register. Hopefully this will work. Cool. And you can see it says loading there, but down here, after a little while, it gets our string. So now all we have to do is search through that string for the amount of kills and for the amount of deaths, and then load that in. And for that, I think we should create a separate class. So let's create a new C# script here, and we'll call this one the data, maybe user account data translator. Or we could just do data translator, which I think I'm going to do. So we'll just have this be the data translator, and let's double click that to open it up in Visual Studio. And everything we're going to be doing in here is going to be static. We're not going to be using system.collections or anything else. We might actually be using system. So I'm just going to put this in here. Cool. So let's make a public static void. And this is going to be the get, or let's say data to kills. And it's going to take in a string with the data, and it's going to return an integer that is the amount of kills. So what do we want to do here? Well, first off, we want to use our data here. What do we want to use it for? Well, we want to split it up into the different values. So we have the first value which is our kill symbol, and then the actual amount of kills, and then we have the second value which is our deaths, and then the amount of deaths. So we're going to split that up by searching for this exact symbol here, this slash. So we'll separate the string into an array of strings, where the first one will be kills and the second one will be deaths, separated by the slash. And the way that we do this is that we create a string array, first of all, a list of strings. It's not a list, it's an array. And we call this we could do pieces or values or whatever. I'm just going to call this pieces or data pieces. And we are going to set that equal to data dot, and I believe it is split. There we go. And it splits it using the slash. And I am actually going to use this as a character. There we go. And it's really that easy. So now we'll get two pieces. We'll get a one with the index of 0 and one with the index of 1. And the first one will be equal to the first part, and the second one will be equal to the second part. Then we can loop through this list. So we can go for each string piece in pieces. What we can then do is we can say if piece dot begins with or starts with, there we go, starts with. So if the first part of the piece here is, and then we can input kills like that. So in case the first part of the string here is kills, then we can get the value right after. That is the amount of kills. We know we've found the right part of the string. However, instead of just hard coding this in, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and make this into a private static string. And we can actually make it a private static constant string, I believe. There shouldn't be anything wrong with that. And we can set that equal to kills here, and we want to call this our kills symbol or tag or whatever you want to do with that. So I'm just going to call it the kills symbol here and close that off, and then we can put kills symbol the constant. Okay, so we can make a constant static. I should have known that. There we go, our kill symbol, and we can put that down there. So in case we the piece starts with the kill symbol, then we can go ahead and remove the kill symbol part of the code so we are only left with the numbers. So we can imagine that our string goes like this, kills, and then a number, and this is currently our piece. So what we want to do is we want to remove this part, and we do that by using piece.substring and then the start index, and we want to start at kill symbol dot length. So basically piece.substring will basically just go into a string and find a certain part of it. In our case, because we've just inputted one index, it's just going to skip to that index. And the index is of course given by the length of this kills symbol here. So that's what we're doing here, and that means that we will get the number 0. Smart. Good, but we can actually make this code a bit more efficient, but because in a moment we're going to be copying this over to do the same with public static int data to deaths string data. And I don't want to copy the entire code here. So what we'll do is we'll separate this out into a separate method, and this is going to be a private static string, and we'll make this our data to value. And it's going to take in a string data, and it's also going to take in a string symbol. Okay, so we're kind of getting there now. So what we can do here is we can say that we want to loop through the data and all that. And once we find that something starts with, and now we don't want to use kill symbol, we want to use the symbol passed in, then we can go and skip through that symbol that we passed in and then return that code. If that makes any sense to you, that's awesome. And in case we didn't find anything, we're just going to return an empty string here, and we're going to debug.log error. We're going to say symbol not found in, and then data. And I need a plus sign there as well. And we can close this off. There we go. And now we can just use this very conveniently up here. We're going to say data to value. The data is here. The symbol is kill symbol. And that should get the amount of kills as a string. So all we need to do now is return that as an integer. And the way that we do this is using int.parse. That is going to convert it into an integer if that is possible. And then it's going to return that. And we can do the exact same thing down here, except now we don't want to use kill symbol. We want to use death symbol, which we need to create up here. So we'll have a deaths symbol. And it's going to simply say deaths in here, and we can put that down there. So that is our data translator. I know that this can be a bit confusing, but if you are at least able to follow along with most of it, it is kind of the way that you work with strings and embed data into them. This syntax is completely made up by me, and you can totally make your own if you find something to be more logical for what you're doing. But I just wanted to show some ways that we could work with strings in order to save and load things from them. So now on received data, what we are going to do is we are going to set kill count.text equal to, and then we can go data translator, and we can pass in data translator dot data to kills, and we can pass in the data, and that is going to return an integer for us. And then we can go .toString, of course, and we can also add on to that maybe just kills, something like that, so it just displays that this is our kills count. And we can also do the same for our death count, so death count.text data to deaths, and then deaths back here. So if we did this correctly, we should now see that once we log in, and we are going to do that now, test 1 2 3, test 1 2 3, it's going to say loading up here in the stats, and then once it gets it, it says 0 kills and 0 deaths. And if we were to change this, it would now update once we load this back in. So that was all I wanted to show for this video. I know it was a lot to get not much working, but that is kind of how it works when you want to do some of this on your own. But I definitely think that this was an important lesson. It is important to learn how to work with strings and saving data. And well done. If you made it all the way through, thumbs up for that. So that's pretty much all I wanted to show for now. I can't wait to the next video, and I'll see you then. Thank you so much to all of the awesome Patreon supporters who donated in August, and a special thanks to Aaron Meta, Robert Roche, James Calhoun, Vixian P, and Andrew K.